Welcome to our Writing Institute Alpha Iota Sigma presentation. We would like to welcome all visitors and people who will continue to keep coming on, so we thank you for joining us. Tonight, I'd like to introduce to you Ms. Bonnie Wilson, who has worked in Providence Health and Services in Portland, Oregon from 2011 to January 2020, where she was the executive leader for regional emergency services. She also holds a faculty position with the Healthcare Administration Nursing Program at Warner Pacific University in Portland. Since 1983, Ms. Wilson has worked in various roles in the healthcare industry, including as a registered nurse in the Washington, D.C. area. She transitioned to leadership at the Greater Southeast Community Hospital in Washington, D.C., where she led the emergency department. In 1999, she assumed the role of Director of Emergency and Outpatient Services at Meritus Medical Center, the largest healthcare provider in Western Maryland, where she, of course, met me. So we have been friends since that wonderful time. And she, since then, has worked as an executive coach with the Studer Group in Florida. She moved to Texas to work at Baylor Scott and White as a vice president of patient care and has since decided to pursue her own dream of mentoring and coaching. Ms. Wilson earned a bachelor's degree in nursing from Olivet Nazarene University and a master's degree in business administration from the University of Phoenix. She is pursuing a doctorate in healthcare administration from Capella University and is waiting to hear about that. And Ms. Wilson is currently pursuing a lifelong dream of combining her operational and relationship building skills to be a full-time executive coach and consultant. Please welcome my friend, Ms. Bonnie Wilson.
Thank you, Pam. Gosh, that just sounds like you wrote it yourself. It's amazing. I've loved having Pam around. We were became friends, and we with one or two other people, were the only African-American women at Washington County Hospital, which is now Meritus Medical Center. So thank you very much. That was wonderful. I am so honored to be able to spend some time with you all and walk through my journey through higher education and through just working, and be able to just give you some insight of what I have found is helpful would have been helpful for me, has been helpful for me pursuing higher education and in the different positions I've had. So as of yesterday, I think it was like 2 o'clock, I heard that my doctorate degree, my capstone, had not only gotten committee review, it's now had school review. So, and it's been school approval. So yay! All I have left is dean approval and for them to do the audit, which takes 21 calendar days. Why it takes that long, I don't know, but I've been told just to be patient, shut up and get over it. So that's what I'm gonna do, but it's hard. So just excited to be done. It's been a 6-year journey. You know, you can have a baby in 9 months. I don't know why it takes so long to get a doctorate degree, but that's neither here nor there. So I'm going to talk about racial equity in higher education. There'll be time for questions at the end, so I would like for you all to please ask questions. When we get to the end, please be jotting them down, put them in the chat box because there's someone paying attention to it. I think it's Sarah. So what does my journey look like and how should we start? So, you know, with every class, with every presentation, there has to be objectives. Because we wouldn't be doctoral students if we didn't have objectives. So the goal is to understand the experiences of minorities that make it difficult to move forward, to define some common equalities, common inequities and equalities, and gain some personal skills to be able to promote equality, and then to learn some mentorship strategies.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Your screen's not sharing, dear.
Oh, dear Jesus. And I really am talking to Jesus. Oh, please. Hold on. You practice, and then lo and behold. Share screen. This one. Share. How about now? Okay. I could see Pam waving at me and I almost went, hi, how are you? But I guess that wasn't what she was saying. Okay, So I went through the objectives. Everybody can see my screen now. If you can just nod. Okay, good. Thank you. So, this is some of my favorite pictures. Jeremiah 29:11 is one of my favorite verses. So just to give you some history, I was born and raised in a Christian home, went to Christian schools, had to find my own way. And I really believe people can have a personal relationship with Jesus. And I do. We talk on a regular basis. People think I'm talking to myself like a few minutes ago. I really wasn't. I was talking to him. So I really believe that he hears me and he helped me to get where I am. So the picture on the left, I was 11 years old. Look at that, all that hair, and I was skinny and, wonderful things. My mother fixed that lovely hairdo, and that's still many times how I see myself. So I am nowhere near 11 years old. And yet oftentimes I'll go to do something. I'm like, well, I'm just a little girl. I don't know if I know how to do this, but I'm not. And I have to remind myself, and my husband helps me with that God sees me as an adult, and he actually has helped me to get where I am. And so he does see me as a successful nurse. There I am on the right, where I graduated from nursing school in Kankakee, Illinois. So I have to remember the way God sees me is the way I should see myself. And I'm not that little girl that was petrified and, just afraid, was I going to make it? So I just think that's really important kind of to start off, so you know what my baseline is. And even though I may come across as super confident, that's not always where I am. Often I am like petrified in my boots. In fact, there was a quick conversation with Pam earlier about why am I petrified of doing this? And I speak in public all the time, like in front of 800 and 900 people, but I was scared of you 6 or 12 or 20. So why is it important to focus on minorities and as they move into higher education? It's really important because if you were to look at the data, minorities in the world of higher education are starting to increase. And while I was kind of an anomaly when I, went to college, I didn't realize till many years later I was a first generation college graduate. I just didn't know. I knew I was, Evelyn Garcia's oldest child and my grandmother's oldest and favorite granddaughter. I didn't realize that there was more to it than that, it was something to be celebrated, that I was the first graduate. But, a lot of things that I had to go through and that I overcame, a lot of folks can't do that. And minorities struggle probably more than many others. And when I say minorities, I mean African-American, Native American, LGBTQ, just a whole array of Native Americans, just a whole array of people. And I think it's important that I and you all understand what we go through so that you can kind of be prepared for what your speech should look like and what that preparation should look like. So I'm going to break it down into actually 4 areas: discouragement and failure, what are your priorities and values, when and how to seek wise counsel, and when and how to be a mentor. So somebody actually said to me, so why did you pick a slide like that had one door that was by itself? Well, I tend to stand out sometimes as an anomaly. And when I say I stand out as an anomaly, and Pam is laughing at me, what I mean is what things that may have gotten other people down didn't get me down. It did for a little while, and I found a way to break through. But I want to bring these examples to you so you understand, while I was able to overcome it, what would have happened if somebody hadn't tried some of the things that they did. So for example, one of my first ones that I try to remember, and I put it under a category of failure does not have to be a stop sign. Failure shouldn't be a stop sign. So I had a microbiology class in my undergrad. I don't remember the instructor's name. It's probably best that I don't. But I remember going through that class, and mind you, so let me back up. Being that first college attendee, there wasn't a lot of money for me to go to college. My parents paid for us to go to private school. And when it was time to go to college, they said, you're going to college. Oh, by the way, you're paying for it on your own, and we'll pay for your books, and we'll help you fill out the financial aid form. And that was back when the financial aid form was paper. Oh my God. So, I went 800 miles away from home to a Christian college. That's where I wanted to go. And I get in this class while I'm working 2 jobs. So I worked at the front desk in the student hall, and I was also working as a nursing assistant at the hospital. And I get in microbiology class, and this, I struggled mightily. And this instructor took me in her tiny little office, and at the time I was tiny, she wasn't. And we squeeze in this little closet office, and she says, my maiden name is Bullock. She said, Bonnie Bullock, you're not going to pass this class. And I remember just like blinking, like, what did you say? And I actually said, what? She said, you're not going to pass this class. You probably should think of another major. And I said, you know what? I'm sorry. You can't tell me that I'm not going to pass this class because you don't know who's at home praying for me. So I'm just going to like go back. And if you don't have anything else, I'm kind of done with this conversation. So even back then I was a bit of a smart mouth, but I did know that I had so many people that were on my side that were praying that I would get through nursing school and I would become a nurse, because I had 2 aunts that were LPNs and I wanted to be a nurse. My father had been a psychiatric technician, and I wanted to grow up. And as my mother said, I said when I was little that my dad worked at a hospital with the sick people. So I wanted to do the same thing. And she tried to steal my dream. So now fast forward. So I'm away at college. When I was in college, we had our clinicals at a very tiny hospital where the critical care looked like a normal medical surgical unit. So we didn't have any ventilators, we didn't have any drips. And when I mean, like, you know, sometimes you go into critical care and you see people hooked up to a whole bunch of tubes and machines and everything. We didn't have any of those. But I lived in Washington, D.C. So I come back from college, I apply to get a job. The year that I came out, the nursing boards changed. So the nursing boards used to be 5 tests over 2.5 days. You had 2 days of 2 med-surg tests, the medical surgical. You had an OB, psychiatric, and a peds. I think that was, the 5 of them. And OBP, yes, that was correct. And when we came out, the nursing board decided they were going to make it one big test. So whereas before, you could fail 2, go back and take, and pass 3 and just have to go back and take part of them. Nope, this was a time where you're going to have to pass the one big test or you failed. So many hospitals were like, we are not hiring any new grads because this is about to be a hot mess, and we're afraid we'll have all these nursing grads and they won't be able to work if they fail the boards. So Washington Hospital Center, the burn unit, was actually hiring new grads. So remember that place where I did my clinicals had no critical care. I come out, I get a job, not just in an ICU, but in a burn ICU. What was I smoking or thinking? So I get the job. They have a wonderful, they had actually residency programs set up before residency programs were what they are now. But the nurses I was with, the new grads I was with, they came from Georgetown University, Howard University, University of Maryland, where they had those big hospitals like the trauma hospital, those other huge hospitals where they had seen everything. So we go in the didactic, we get on the units, and again, remember when I was in school, I was working a lot. So I didn't pay a really good attention during anatomy and physiology and some of those other classes. So we get on the floors, and the instructor says, with a burn patient, they many times have problems with their lungs, especially if they have circumferential burns around their chest area. So what do we think this patient has in room 2? And all the really smart nurses said, oh, he probably has pneumonia. That's very good. Where do you think he has pneumonia? Well, the x-ray says he has the left lobe. I'm looking at the x-ray like, where's the lobes? Like, which part is I'm sorry. And she'd continue to ask questions, and these nurses knew all the answers. If one didn't, the other didn't. Well, what are we supposed to do? Well, of course, you're supposed to get blood cultures before you start the antibiotic because you want to see what's growing. I was like deer in headlights pretty much the whole time, just like, oh my God, I have no idea what these people are talking about. So then, but my saving grace was I had a boyfriend, David. My boyfriend, David, and I'd never had a boyfriend before, so I was so excited. So David and I used to hang out after work and on weekends. And so I took the boards, and I can't remember if he took me down there. And what do you think happened when I took those boards? I failed with flying colors, failed, oh my God, failed. And I can remember laying across the bed at my mother's house, just bawling my eyes out. Oh my God, I'll never be a nurse and this is horrible. And what was I thinking? And I just need to go back and blah, 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 blah. But at Washington Hospital Center, I think that we used to call them head nurses then. I think the head nurse like pulled me aside and said, Bonnie, you didn't pass your boards, so you can't keep your job here, but you've been a really good employee. So if you ever need a reference, just let me know, but you can't work here anymore. Although I was devastated. But when I think back, she didn't take away my dignity. She didn't just like snatch anything out from under me. She was just really sweet saying, you know what, this is too much for you. Why don't you go get a med-surg job and check back with us later? And that was exactly what I did. And I ended up with med-surg jobs and critical care and, step down and doing a whole bunch of things, which has helped to get me where I am now. So fast forward, I've had at least 2 other big events. So one was with Studer Group. Studer Group is a nationwide coaching and consulting company outside of Florida, and they only hire like 4 to 10 new people every year. So I had seen them at, they had come into Meredith Medical Center, did some work. I went to one of their big conferences and I was really excited. I'm like, oh, I've influenced patient experience in Maryland. I want to influence it all across the United States. So I go and interview. It was a 3 or 4 part interview. So I meet the first woman, Jean Martin, and I saw that they wore blue suits with white blouses. So I dug in my closet, put on a blue suit with a white blouse, and I interviewed with her. And as we went through, she said, we are so interested in you. You talk like us, you look like us, you dress like us. We're really excited to have you. We'll continue with the process. So I was so excited. So then I have the next interview. I don't remember who it was with, but I remember that part just went so well. They interviewed me. They thought I was amazing. And then I get to the third part of the interview. I think the person's name was Stephanie. She interviewed me. I could feel a little kind of tension during the call, but I was my usual self answering questions. And about 2 weeks later, I get a call from the human resources person who, oh, by the way, I'd never talked to, and says, Bonnie, I'm really sorry you did not get the job. I went, wait, what? What do you mean I didn't get the job? Everybody told me I was fitting the position. I'm really sorry, we've chose other candidates. Devastated, went back, really cried over it, thought over it. My college roommate came up to spend the weekend with me because I was so devastated. I just knew I was going to this new job. And I talked to one of my peers at Washington County Hospital, Meredith Medical Center, and he said, the good coach that he was, Mike, said, so Bonnie, what do you think you should do? And I said, I think I should write a letter to the president and tell them what I think. What's to lose? They didn't hire me. I mean, what are they gonna do? Fire me? They can't. So I wrote a letter and I kind of went through the whole process of what happened and said, this is really bothering me. Something about this doesn't feel right. This and this and this went well, but with this person, something just didn't click. And I don't want to assume that it's racial, but that's what it felt like. Within a couple of days, I got a letter back and a call, excuse me. They wanted to speak to me and they said, we've looked back and found out that some of our interviewing processes didn't always align. We didn't do interviews every time the same way. So we'd like to give you another opportunity. And would you like to start from the beginning and start all over again? Or would you like to pick up where you left off? I'm like, I'll pick up where I left off. Several weeks later, I got an offer. I was offered that job. I stayed there for 2.5 years. But the third woman that interviewed me this time said, Bonnie, you're going to have to be careful because obviously as an ER nurse, you don't have a lot of patience. And sometimes that impatient shows on your face. So you can't be rolling your eyes and acting like med-surg nurses are idiots. And because even when you're thinking it, it's showing on your face. Voila, thank you, Sis Grubel, for telling me that. To this day, I have to pay attention to my facial expressions because sometimes I don't even roll my eyes, but I have that look like, really, did you really say that? But Sis Grubel gave me amazing feedback. She didn't just say, you know what, you can't work with us. So I've used that for years and years, paying attention to my facial expressions. And then I had several other jobs. I had a job where I was at Providence that Pam told you for like 9 or 10 years. I went to, I was at Meredith for 9 years, Providence for 9 or 10 years. And then my husband moved to Texas and I got a job at Baylor Scott and White. I was ecstatic. So glad I had a job. I was promoted to a vice president of patient care. And I took the job not knowing it was a C&O role. In fact, when I went for my employee health appointment, the employee health nurse said, "So Bonnie, what's your job going to be here?" And I said, "A vice president of patient care." And she's like, "What's that?" I went, "I don't know. I just know it's like over patient care." She said, "So what are you going to be doing?" She's like, "So you took a job, don't really know." I said, "Okay, let me tell you what I think. I'm supposed to be paying attention to wherever nurses are, make sure nursing practice is correct." And she's like a CNO? Yeah, I guess that's what it's like. So I start the job in the end of January. I am loving life. I built relationships. I was able to influence their metrics. We turned around their staffing. Their patient experience was going great. Their quality metrics was going great. And on June the 18th, I was called downstairs after I came bebopping into my scrubs to go kind of shadow one of the nursing supervisors because I wanted to see things from the nurse's perspective. And I was called down and told, "I'm sorry, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to say to you, but we're letting you go." I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you said. And pretty much the summary was, you don't communicate in a manner that's consistent with a vice president and you're unapproachable. Okay, so devastated again, like NCLEX devastated, like lost my job. I hadn't been fired since that position back at Washington Hospital Center. And I cried and bawled and everything. But as I was driving home, I called my husband, snot all around the steering wheel and, all over my face. And I'm just like, "Mark, I can't believe it." And he said, "Bonnie, as smart as you are, you've been talking since 2018 about starting your own coaching and consulting business. You have an opportunity now. Why don't you go do it?" Now, just so you know, my husband's really a manly man and he doesn't give compliments and he doesn't tell me how gorgeous I am and all those things. But that day he told me that if he was as smart as me, I wrote it down and I've used that since. My husband telling me that and other people telling me that, "Bonnie, the amount of time, that 4 months you spent at Baylor Scott and White, you built more relationships and influenced more people and made more inroads on our metrics than people that have been here for years, for years." And I've taken that. That's just been amazing to me. But I want to remind you that everybody doesn't bounce back like me. Everybody doesn't take those failures and make them opportunities. And I can tell you, when you're a minority, you try not to think, is it racial? But sometimes it is, and it's really hard. I mean, why didn't somebody pull me aside and say, "Here's some of the things you're doing"? What was the problem? Why did that woman at Studer Group? Why wasn't everybody like Pat at Washington Hospital Center? So discouragement and failure, that's kind of my story of what happened to me. And I want to move forward to now, what next? So the way I've lived my life and the way I mentor and coach others is to make sure you know your priorities and your values, and then also to seek wise counsel. So my apologies if this is a little distracting. I'm going to start on the left side first. So many years ago, I sat down and wrote what my priorities were. So, you go through all kinds of, self-help groups and all these different things. And I really sat down and figured out, what should my priorities be? So it used to be God, family, and then work. But I realized after several medical emergencies that if I didn't have health in there somewhere, I couldn't take care of other people. I couldn't do my other things. So I've since put health right after God, because many of you have taken a flight. What do the flight attendants walk through and say to anybody that has a child sitting there? They say, put on with your child, please put on your own oxygen mask first, then help your child. Because if you don't have your own oxygen mask on, you can't help anybody else. And so I've realized I have to take care of me. I have to take care of me so that I can help other people. When I say family should be up there really high, have you ever, probably never, heard anyone on their deathbed go, "I wish I'd finished that book report. I wish I'd done that last job at work. That's what was so important to me before I died." No one says that. What they say is, "I wish I'd hugged my husband one more time. I wish I could see my grandkids. I wish I'd seen my daughter graduate from college. I wish I was able to see the wedding." It's so important to realize family is more important than any job, any school, anything else. And I've had to eat my own words when I pay attention to what my priorities are. So I've had to pay attention to, if I have to decide, do I want to do something for work? Am I going to work on school? Or do I want to have dinner with my husband? I really love working, but I can't say my priorities are God, health, family, and then work and school without living it. And trust me, he calls me on it periodically, which he just did a couple of weekends ago. He's like, you tell everybody your priorities are God, health, and family, and yet you want to go do something for work. So I not only make those my values, I tell other people so they'll hold me accountable to it. I think it's important to establish your values and share them with others because each of us can hold each other accountable. My other big aha moment has been that even the Bible talks about finding wise counsel. It's something like, and this is the BWV, the Bonnie Wilson version, but it says something like, in the midst of wise counsel, you can make good decisions. And so I've had to think, so who are the people that I see as wise counselors? So many of the people are in my family. My husband didn't go to college, graduated from high school. He's a truck driver. He has to be the smartest man I've ever met in my life. He listens, he pays attention to what I say, and then he gives me really good feedback. We actually have a 28-year-old son that has to be one of the smartest kids I've ever met in my life. I can't tell you how many times he's like, so Mom, why did you say you were going to do that and you didn't? Why do you get afraid when people tell you that? Family can see things that you can't see, and they are an amazing compass to keep you going in the way you're supposed to be going. Mentors. I've had many mentors in my life. One of the best ones I had was at a job several years ago when I was working with Pam, Deborah Addo. Deb was amazing. She'd call you on your stuff, but she'd also, you do a presentation or you turn in a report, and she would tell you when you've done a great job. And I've just always found that I need a mentor in different places, and I need to use those and make sure that I use them to help me make decisions. So for example, some of my mentors have been some college professors I've had in my days. So there's a couple at Capella that I still check in with. Dr. Abul Anim. I was ready to give up on my doctorate program, and I called, snot all over the place and everything. It sounds like I cry a lot with snot everywhere, doesn't it? But whatever. But I was so ready to give up, and I called and I said, I can't seem to pick my topic. I don't know what I'm doing. This is horrible. I should quit. And when I finished my whole soliloquy, he said, if you quit, I'm going to come there and hold you down while your husband beats you. You are not going to quit. You're this far along. And I'm like, that almost sounds like abuse, but I started really paying attention. But he was really helpful for me. Dr. I can never say her name, Karjalainen. I have a instructor now that's helped us with our doctorate program. Dr. Yvonne, she has sent us bracelets. She really stays there, and we can text her at any time and say, I'm really worried. What do I do with this? What great mentors. Colleagues are great, great mentors. I mean, I've had Pam in my life. I had the guy, when I said Mike, he was one of the employees there. There was two people, Dr. Lynette Savage and Dr. Troy Larkin at my last job, that said, Bonnie, you should go get your doctorate. And I'm like, but why? I don't want a bunch of letters after my name. And they really guided me to what a good doctorate program looks like, decide whether you're going to do a dissertation or a capstone. What are you going to do with that degree when you're done? So I just think it's important to, in these three different areas, decide who are the people and where are the people that can help you. One of the people that became like family to me was Doris when I lived in Hagerstown, our 28-year-old son that I told you about. I'm not a bad mother, let me start there, but I left that child at work more times than I can tell you. Left him at work, left him at school, and I would just suddenly realize in the middle of writing a paper and call Doris, just like, oh my God, I left Jamal at work, what am I supposed to do? And she'd go, Bonnie, I'll pick him up, I'll feed him, and then I bring him home. She would bring us dinner, she just did anything to help us. Those are the kind of people you need in your corner, and you need to remember them as you go along. I just talked to Doris a couple of days ago because she's just an amazing family member that was a neighbor that became family. So when you talk about mentors, it's, when do you start mentoring? So I've told you about a couple of mentors I had. Another one I had at Providence, Theron Park. All these people have just been amazing helping me, just doing wonderful things and making sure I was guided the right way. And I kept thinking, gosh, everywhere I go, I need a mentor. And one day it hit me that, I know many of you have heard the verse, to whom much is given, much is expected. I started thinking, I wonder if I should be a mentor. Then I went, no, I don't have my master's degree. No, I don't have my doctorate degree. No, I'm not super good in math. No, I don't have techie things. No, I don't have. And then I went, wait a minute. I think that's the definition of imposter syndrome. You're really good at a lot of things, but you talk yourself into, I must be a failure because I can't do all those other things. And it suddenly occurred to me that I can be a mentor like right now, like as soon as I get off the phone. And Quinn Studer used to tell us, relate, don't compare. So I might not be good in math. Deb Addo used to tell me, please don't do math in the middle of a presentation because you put zeros in places where they don't belong. But I'm really good at having crucial conversations. I'm really good at using my nursing skills to help other people be able to prioritize what you should do. In nursing, we triage airway, breathing, circulation, disability. I teach people to use that in life. What's the highest thing you need to do that's going to keep your airway open? Then how do you make sure you're still breathing? How do you make sure you still have a pulse? How do you make sure these other things are occurring? I can use what I have. I don't have to even be talking to a nurse. Other people may be in academia, in IT, and all these other things, and I can help them. Think back to who you needed when you were growing up and try to be that person. I needed somebody to explain to me what's the difference in going to get your bachelor's degree and getting your associate's degree. What's the difference? Why should you go get a master's degree? What's the point of getting a doctorate? I want to be that kind of person that I could have used when I was growing up. And also remember those who walk in your footsteps. There's a little 10-year-old next door. I think I just heard her ring the doorbell. I'm trying to ignore it. But there's a 10-year-old next door that calls me her neighborhood bestie. I think it's so cute. And one day I asked her mother, I'm like, why does she say that? She goes, because she doesn't like her grandmother, and I think she likes you. So the pause was, did she just call me a grandmother, which means her mother is like, am I old enough to be her mother's mother? Okay, let's not go down that road. Let's just be glad that this little girl loves me. But what does that look like? She's going to walk in my footsteps. She was over here a couple of days ago because we had to have a Bonnie Avery day. She planned the whole thing out. We were going to watch Halloween movies. We were going to bake cookies and go get, what did she want? Panda Express for dinner. And she was supposed to spend the night. And so something came on TV and she said, Miss Bonnie, so what's all this hullabaloo about voting? And I went, well, that's an interesting question. Women weren't allowed to vote for many years and minorities couldn't vote for a long, long time. And now we have that opportunity. And so we should take that opportunity and go vote because we can't complain if we haven't voted yet. And she went, oh, that's interesting. And she went on playing. But I bet you she'll remember some of that later. And she will realize that it's important to vote. Remember those who's going to walk in your footsteps. I've had little, small kids come up and talk to me. A little girl across the street wants to know, what are you doing? Where'd you come from? There's people watching everything you do. So whom can you mentor? There's elementary school kids, middle school kids, high school kids. I was asked last week, I think, from a friend of mine in Oregon, Bonnie, we have some high school students that have a call like once a month, and we were wondering if you could join the call. I went, okay, what for? She said, we just want some adults, some professional adults on to be able to give them how they can survive during COVID and what are some things that they could do to take care of themselves. And we just think you'd be a good addition. I went, okay. She didn't even want me as a nurse. She just wanted me as a person. What an opportunity to be able to influence people. There was 12 high school kids on there. But how many times do we say, no, I don't have time. No, I have other things to do. No, I got a paper to do. No, I got to be at work. It took 45 minutes and I was done. We really need to take those opportunities. There's college students that can use you all's help. College students that want to know, what is it like to be in college to get a higher level degree? Is it going to take years? Is it going to take hours? How much time do you have to study? It's important that we really connect with those people and be a mentor to them, be a friend to them, help coach them. Work colleagues are watching what you do. I've had people at work that are in other departments that will say, I've seen what you've accomplished. Do you mind mentoring me? Can you like show me how to get to the next spot? There's a gentleman, in fact, that was on LinkedIn that's in Oregon, hadn't been able to get an interview at the job where I used to work. He reached out, I called a couple people. He has an interview on Friday. Now I did have to say to him, I opened the door for you. I don't know you from Adam. So the way you interview is the way you interview, but the door is open. We have opportunities, use those opportunities to bring people along, and especially think about people of color. If you look at the statistics, even at the hospital where I just came from, the senior leader team doesn't match the community. So there's a lot of white people there. It's white men, a few white women, and I don't even think now there's any African American women. There's not any African American men. There's no Native Americans. There's no Asians. So how do you help people to understand here's how you can get into some of those jobs? How do you help people to realize, you know what? I'm working on my doctorate degree. I see you just started school. Let me help you. You have the opportunity of a lifetime to be able to mentor and coach. So this is my favorite picture. My husband doesn't like it because he thinks it's not very professional. As you see, I don't care what he said. So we were somewhere, I can't remember, we think we were in Frederick, and something I saw made me laugh. So there's a joke in our house when my husband first met me. He said, I think you have 72 teeth and you feel the need to show them all. Now, you remember I'm a nurse, right? So why did I try to count? I was like, 1, 2, 3. Mark, there's no way you can have 72 teeth. That's not true. But it's a joke because he says, I smile a lot and feel the need to show all my teeth. Well, I paid a lot of money for him, so why not? I mean, I love to laugh and I love to smile, and I notice even with wearing a mask, if you smile at people, they smile back. They can see it in your eyes. And when I say be unapologetically who you are, Mark's like, you shouldn't put that picture on there because it's not professional. And I'm like, well, dude, you should stay in your lane because I'm going to put it on here because it makes me happy. Someone asked me at a presentation I was doing, how do you make sure you are unapologetically Black? And I thought about that long and hard and was like, how do I do that? I think the way I actually do is I'm unapologetically who I am. And if you tell me I can't get something accomplished, it's actually my goal in life to prove you wrong. And I'll give you a couple examples in a few minutes. But encourage people, and you also be who you are. We've teased Pam for years about her laugh. It is the most contagious thing ever. And no matter how many times we will tease her, she's still got the same laugh. I don't know if any of you all heard at the beginning of the presentation when Candace was playing, Dr. Bloomquist was playing Aretha Franklin. The story behind that is we were going to do an LDI. And somebody said, our friend Deb said, don't play Respect by Aretha Franklin because Pam will start dancing. And doggone if somebody didn't play it, and in the back of a room full of people, Pam didn't even care. She just went, what you want, baby? And it was supposed to be super professional, but Pam is unapologetically who she is. I try to be just who I am. You don't have to put on a front for people. If they want you to put on a front, I think it's their problem. I'm not saying be unprofessional, but you do have to be who you are. And we've tried to raise kids that are who we are, and I encourage people to do the same. So what's been my journey in academics? So I got my bachelor's of nursing from Olivet Nazarene University in Kankakee, Illinois. Say that 5 times fast. Yes, there is a place called Kankakee, Illinois. I have my master's in business administration from the University of Phoenix. That was a long, arduous journey. I can't tell you how many times I fell asleep working on papers. I would have people that worked all night in other jobs. I'd have them call me in 15 minutes. This paper's due in 45. Call me so I can wake up and finish it. Again, that family, mentor, and colleague support. And I am finishing my doctorate at Capella University. So I'm like 2 steps from finishing, just the dean approval and the school audit. It's taken me 6 long, long years, but I would have never been able to do it without that support. When I was in my master's program, there were 2 people, Penny Hill and Deb Malick, that I wanted to quit and they wouldn't let me stop. I didn't realize that you have to have a B average in a master's program to stay in school. So I took statistics of all things. Remember, I hate math. I'm not good at math. And I got a C. I was like, yay, I passed. No, I got a letter put on academic probation. I'm like, wait, what? And wanted to just stop. I was done. Then I see my itinerary and I had another statistics class. I said, I'm not going back. Penny and Deb Malick said, oh, yes, you are. You're going in and you're going to finish. And actually, Deb sent her high school son to help me with my statistics class. You need people through all your life. It takes a village to be able to do some of the things that we feel like we've been called to do. And it's taken a village to help me get through my Capella University program. So what we just talked about is discouragement and failure. You know, how do you get through that discouragement and failure? How do you remember that while I was able to take big leaps over that, how do you recognize it in other students, recognize it in your friends, and help them get over those leaps? How do you encourage people to have values and priorities, and then to use their network to seek wise counsel? And how do you make sure that starting tomorrow, you're a mentor to someone, to anyone that could use your advice? Last but not least, this is actually my favoriteest picture in the whole world. So the top left, if you lean into the screen and look very closely, there I am, the top left in the corner, like way up there, the tallest. Yeah, there you go. Way, I'm like up. There I am, up there. And they made the 2 Black students be the bookends. So there's the other student. But I look back at that picture, I was ready to take on the world. I didn't know I was going to fail my boards. I didn't know I wasn't going to be able to keep my job. I didn't know all the stuff that was going to happen, but I somehow made it through all of it. This bottom left picture was actually our pinning, and I was a concert pianist. That's another story. And I took piano lessons also while I was in college. So I'd been that before I got there. And the piano teacher didn't realize what my parents had already figured out, that if she told me I couldn't do something, I was like, oh, bet, it's on. So she told me I couldn't learn a song that I was working on and I wouldn't be ready. What you see in front of you, ladies and gentlemen, is me not only playing with Amy, playing a duet with Amy, but I had just finished playing a solo song, the one she said I couldn't do. I found a way to make those obstacles kind of stepping stones. Remember, though, that everybody is not going to have that. And there were some people that tried to really just knock me down and tear me down. The one on the right was actually my professional picture from Baylor Scott and White. The way I look at Baylor Scott and White is they paid for me to get down here to Texas. Thank you very much. They paid for me to start my business. I appreciate that. And they paid for my professional pictures. So there's positives in everything. And it's important that all of us remember that discouragement and failure shouldn't be a stop sign, and that we can be mentors. Make sure you have your priorities right, and have your values where you need to, and seek wise counsel. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Great job. Thank you, Bonnie. That was wonderful. We do have a few questions that are in the chat box. I will start from reading out loud the questions that we have in the chat box, and I think we'll probably just engage in a little bit of a conversation. So the first one is from Sarah. She said, I once read that having a mentor who is significantly younger than you is important. What do you think about that, about having a younger mentor?
I've had some people that are younger than me, so I think the age doesn't matter. It's, do they have the qualities that you're looking for? So I'm in a coaching program now. There was a young lady that I was talking to. I think she's probably, put it this way. She said she was a senior in the Columbine. So that should tell you about how old she was. And by the time we got off, I had pages and pages of notes where she gave me some really good ideas. I think the age doesn't matter. It's, do they have the qualities that you're looking for? And can they help you to get to where you need to? And do you feel like they're a good sounding board?
Thank you, Bonnie. Yeah, I had an experience where I had someone kind of mentor me. She was 10 years younger. She could help me with technological things, but really, she just spoke from a different generation. So I guess, technically Gen X, and she was a millennial, but she just really had a really unique perspective and really guided me along progressively, like how I needed to rethink things. And even though she's white, she had really good views on racial issues and things like that. So I learned a lot from her, and I still do. So thank you.
No problem.
The next question is from Pamela. She asked, how do you mentor someone out of their imposter syndrome?
So that's a good question. I start with, what are you good at? Let's talk about what you're good at. And, then people are like, well, I can't do this and I can't do that, which is what I started doing. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at that. I say, well, let's make a list. What are the things you're good at? And really get them to write them down. So, and someone just did this to me. So I said, oh my God, I don't know if I can do my own business. There's so many things. I'm not good at this. I don't know what I'm doing. And so they said, well, let's list the things that you've already done. This was months ago. And I'm like, well, I figured out the name. I got my webpage. I've opened the 2 accounts, and I named like 7 things. And she said, so let's go back to what you said. Do you feel like you're not starting a business? Because I had that imposter syndrome of, I am so bad. Oh my God, there's no way I can do this. I think it's important to ask people to list the positives about themselves. Like, what do you know about the area that you're going into? And when they do that, then they come to the realization themselves that what they've told themselves is not true.
And I wonder if there's an aspect of consideration of humility, right? And where there are some folks that are so humble that they won't even start, right?
Yeah. Well, and healthcare workers are famous for not being able to talk about themselves. We just can't, because we're like, oh no, wait, no. I had a hard time even writing a resume, because in a resume you're supposed to list your accomplishments. And I actually said to one of my bosses, but the team did that. She said, who led the team? And I'm like, well, me. So it's that I think that's what a mentor is good for, to help you see the things that you have done. I mean, she started listing the things that I had done, and I went, yeah, oh yeah, I did do that. Didn't I? So I think the other good thing about a mentor, sometimes they'll share like their resume or share some things of how it felt to them to list their good qualities, and then they point out your good qualities, and then that kind of gives you a jump start.
Yeah, I will agree with you, Bonnie, on especially it being in healthcare. As long as we've been in healthcare, the imposter syndrome is huge there, because you're supposed to know those things. You're supposed to help people. You're supposed to, I mean, all of our vow is written up into not harming anyone. And so if you don't know something, it shows immediately. So you work hard to not show anybody what you don't know. And which could easily get you in trouble, which is usually when I'm mentoring, I tell people, if you don't know something, please just speak up, because it's easier for us to work it out together and to learn it together, rather than to go for days and weeks not knowing. And then when the situation comes up, then you're basically flummoxed about what to do in that situation, whether it's with a patient or with a coworker. So it's very hard to stay behind that imposter wall, and kind of show that you know a lot, but you may not know the specific things that you need to do the job. So it's hard to come out of that imposter syndrome when you've been doing it for so long.
Yeah, and to own up to what you don't know. The same person who actually was the first one that interviewed me at Student Group, Jean, I remember she needed to shadow me at one of my jobs. And so we went in to see a CEO, and the CEO said, we'd really like to have an executive assessment done. Bonnie, could you do that for us? And I said, sure, I'd be happy to do that. When would you like it done? Oh, we want it done in 2 months. I said, well, let's get it on the calendar, get it scheduled. We get out in the hallway, and Jeannie said, have you ever done that before? I went, no. She said, well, why did you make it sound like you had? I said, did you want me to tell them? I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know how to do it. No, I get out here and say that. And she went, well, I just promise me you'll never like try to do anything without, you'll always ask for help. I'm like, I was planning to do that when we got out here. But, you know, you have to put that face up for clients, for, you know, your job. But then it's important, like Pam said, to go and get that help. And that's where I've had mentors forever to be able to help me with that, because there's a time and a place. You can't, you know, in front of your employees or in front of, you know, in front of a class sometimes just go, I have no idea what you're talking about. I think there's a time and a place for that. And sometimes I do say, I don't know, but let me go look it up. But you don't want to use that imposter syndrome to be an excuse for not being the person that you need to be.
We have about 5 or so more questions, so these great questions coming in. So the next one is from Ophelia. She asks, how do you overcome the challenge of not knowing what to talk to your mentor or mentee about?
So if you're a mentor, it's up to the mentee to tell you what they want to accomplish. So I've come into people to be my mentor. So one of the people there, and when I came to him, I said, with my outspoken, quiet self, I said, I know you're looking for a chief nursing officer. That's not what I'm here for. I'm not interested in the job. Even if you were to ask me, I don't want it. What I need is for you to help me to understand the culture of Providence, because I don't quite understand it. And so he walked me through that. Sometimes the mentor tells you what they're going to help you with. For example, Deb Addo at Meredith Medical Center actually told my boss, I'm going to mentor Bonnie because I see she has some challenges with finance. So she pulled me aside and she's like, okay, so we're going to go over this because I can't, it's too embarrassing to watch you embarrass yourself in front of other people. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to bring your finance statements and we're going to walk through these. I think so of course that set up, here's the agenda for the things she helped me with. So if someone comes to you and says, I want you to mentor me, here's what I always say. Well, what is it you'd like to get out of the relationship? What are the areas where you feel like you need some help? If I think somebody needs to be mentored, if you're thinking you're going to mentor somebody, it's because you see some opportunities in them and you want to help them get there. But you can't get them there. I mean, you know the saying, you can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink. Let's say if I saw an area with Dr. Bloomquist. I don't, let's be really clear. But I saw an area that she needed some help with bringing up music on Zoom. And I could go to her and say, Dr. Bloomquist, I'd really like to help you with that. And if she goes, I'm fine, I got it. I can't mentor her on that. She thinks she's got it, she's fine. But if she says, gosh, I really was hoping somebody would help me, then that's the opportunity for me to be the mentor to her. So the mentee should come with what they want. If they don't, then I've said, well, I'm not really sure this will be a good opportunity. But if you see an opportunity in other people and you want to mentor them, I think it's appropriate to go and ask them, would you like some help with this?
The question from Teresa is, the CEO of Wells Fargo recently basically stated that the lack of diversity at his company is because there is a lack of talent in the financial industry. How, as a minority leader, do we respond to such claims in the arenas in which we work?
Here's how I've responded to it. So I've had some people say at previous jobs, well, here's what somebody said to me. We didn't hire any African-American nurses because there weren't any around. And here's what I've said. Did you go where they were to recruit? Did you check like at Howard University? Did you check at some historical Black universities? I said, let me tell you something. If you were looking for a new CEO to run your hospital, you wouldn't advertise in the local paper. You wouldn't. You would put out a national search and you would check all these places that have great CEOs. You'd have headhunters reaching out to them saying, this is a great place to work. Want to come and interview for this job. So why don't you do the same thing when you're looking for diversity? Go where you see diverse people. There's some great CEOs, some great finance people. I mean, have they looked at, Harvard University to see if there's any finance people there? Have they looked down in Charlotte where there's finance galore and look to see where are the finance experts there? I've been so impressed over the past like 5 or 6 years, the number of female finance people. I mean, remember, my math sucks. So I'm just like so impressed when I see like these female finance people. And when they're African American, I'm like, oh, you rock, girl, go ahead. So I think he's not looking, and that's why he can't find what he's looking for. I think he's not looking, and that's why he can't find what he's not looking for.
And Andrea has the next question. She says, in your experience as a mentor or with mentors, do you think racial biases affect men, women, and LGBTQ African Americans in the same way?
I think everybody's different. And I'm not trying to like push that question off, but I think you have to decide what's going to be your area of expertise. For many years, LGBTQ wasn't brought forward as a minority. Many years ago, it just wasn't spoken about. If you look at some of the statistics, I was looking at some last night. If you're female, African American, and LGBTQ, it's like you're at the bottom rung of all those areas. So I think you would struggle more. I have a male African American gay son who's, oh, by the way, 6'3" and can dress kind of scary sometimes. So I think everybody has their issues, but I think if you take all those minority areas and say which ones have the least amount of representation, like in healthcare and some of these others, and then imagine somebody with all of them. So like female, because females don't make as much as males. We're not in a lot of jobs. Then now you're African American. You know what the literature says about disparities in healthcare and African Americans being in higher education or being in higher level jobs, and then LGBTQ. So you put all that together, you really have somebody that's going to struggle. So I'd say all of them struggle in their own way. I'm not sure if there's one that struggles more than the other. I think it's Brene Brown that says nobody's pain is worse than anybody else's. It's from whoever's pain is the worst from their own perspective.
No. We just have 2 minutes, but I do want to get to Dr. Mossbreen's question. It's the last question that we have on the chat. She says, Bonnie, thank you for sharing your stories. And her question is, when you faced bad news, like losing your job, what specific things did you do to get moving again? And how did you actually reframe your mindset?
Somebody just asked me that yesterday. That's funny. So somebody is losing, as her job has gone down and her significant other's leaving her. And she said, so what did you do? How did you pull yourself out of it? What I'd say is grieving is a real thing. I went through a divorce many, many years ago. And I remember telling my friend Deb, standing on her deck, I said, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I want to jump over. I don't want to go through the tunnel of grief and all that. And she said, sorry, you can't do that. I had to realize that you have to grieve. You have to grieve that loss. I really wasn't kidding when I'm like, there was snot everywhere. I really did do a lot of crying. I made a conscious effort to take care of myself. I'd go get my nails done. I would make a hair appointment. I would just, stand in the shower for hours till I'd run all the hot water out and really just take care of me. The other big thing I do that's probably the biggest thing that lets me release some of that madness and energy is I journal. There's not really a rhyme or reason to it. On my phone, on my Apple phone, on the notes section, I actually have a thing that says journal entries. And I just I type at the speed people talk, so I can type pretty fast. And yesterday I was just sitting there typing my thoughts, just type it out. I don't care if there's misspellings, because once I get it out of my head, it's on paper. I've also had to realize, just because you're going through those stages of grief, they're not in any order. So I said to somebody, well, I got to the anger part, so I should be done. And she said, did you not hear what, who was the woman that did the stages of grief? I can't think of her name. Anyway, don't you remember what she said? That everybody doesn't go in the same order and sometimes it changes. So I've realized I had to go through that. And then at some point, I've had other people that go, Bonnie, Now's the time. Let's pull up your bootstraps and let's get going. And then I've had to take it one day at a time. One day at a time. I told you I'm not good at math. One day. But I had to take it one day at a time and realize, you know what? Let me also journal, what am I good at? Let me look at, so what am I good at? So what were the good things? So I actually have something in my journal that says, what are the positives that happened when I ended up leaving Baylor Scott and White? Well, I made a lot of friends. I made some great relationships. I made a difference. I got moved down to Texas. I was good at what I did. I get to live with my husband. This is the one I always tell him. I get to kiss you all over your face. I mean, I just like literally made a list, and I ended up with like 12, 15 things. And then the final thing I do a gratitude journal. I just literally take a piece of paper and I say every day I'm going to write 3 things on there. And it ends up with things like, I am so glad the soap smells so good in the shower. I am so glad I have hot water. Oh, this cup of coffee is amazing. The sun is out. Isn't that great? I have glasses. Everybody doesn't get to have glasses when they can't see. So I use gratitude. I take care of myself. And then at some point I've said, I got to pull myself up. Let's go and get it going. I almost said a bad word. I got to pull myself up. Let's really pull it together and let's get going.
Thank you, Bonnie. It's just after, but I'm going to hand it over to Sarah here, and she will close us out.
Hi, everybody. As the night's gone on, I've kind of been posting some announcements in the chat. So one of the ones I see here is Andrea and I are going to be leaving our posts on the executive team as we're graduating. So if you're interested in running for either vice president or treasurer, that's a post we now hold, please reach out to Pam. I think it's Pam, right? Okay. And then let's see, we have a mentoring program that AIS is sponsoring. So if you want more information about that, send me your email. You can email me about that. And then let me go. I typed up some stuff. Hold on. I'll be fast, I promise.
Yoga class?
Yes, yoga class next week. Where is that? Yes, next Wednesday, October 21st at 7 p.m. I'll be leading a slow flow class. It's appropriate for somebody who has never done yoga before versus really seasoned practitioners. And that's thanks to AIS's Committee for Research and Networking. So thanks to Andrea for getting that going. If you have any questions, you can reach out to her, and I'll put that in the chat. And also thanks to the Committee for Research and Networking, they have sponsored 11 of us to attend a AIS mini conference via Zoom in November 2020. And those attending will be April Bushelman, Kara Agajan, I'm sorry, Kara, Jesse Fetterman, myself, Pamela McAfee, Andrea Cuervo-Prados, Jacqueline Judasco, Lee Ebersol, Kevin Kane, Avita Salas, and Ryan Eichmeyer. So that's going to be next month, and we're really excited about that. And yeah, and the mentoring thing. So I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I want to thank Bonnie. She made me really laugh a lot and learned a lot. Thank you very much for that. Thank you all for coming here tonight. And I'm glad this is recorded because I think we can share this, and I want to be able to share your information because you really provided us with some great, your great experiences. And so thank you very much.
Sure, I meant to I'll put it in the chat so people can get in touch with me.
Oh, yes,
Thank you.
Did I put, the survey. Yes, so if you would all do, I created a real quick Qualtrics survey. It'll take you less than 5 minutes, I promise. But if you could fill it out, I'd be forever grateful. And so would Bonnie.
The link is right there in the Qualtrics, so just click on the link before you exit out. It'll open up on your screen, and then you can fill it out in just a moment. Thank you, everyone. I'll leave you with a little more Aretha for tonight.
Pam, no dancing.
Hey.
Gotta be me. Thank you so much, Bonnie.
You're welcome.
All right, I love this.
No!
You're hilarious.
That's great.